Now this piece needs to be cut again. It's the piece that goes over the wheel well. So again, I've lined this up so my saw will pass through. Make sure there's no obstructions underneath. Shield is in my way. And I should have a piece to fit. By the way, somebody advised that I use the sawdust with some glue later on, so I'm keeping the sawdust. I'm collecting it all in a bucket or a little dish, and then I can later use it with glue to fill in the gaps. And I have automatic color matching. Okay, I'm going to have to frame in my wheels. That'll be for the wheel well. It's another project to do yet. Alright, now I've got to calculate this next piece, which is going to have a cutout, a little cutout for the wheel well. So, and then I'm going to have to put in all the support boards. So, I'll measure that out and get that piece ready. Now I am working here. I've cut a couple pieces. I don't think I've showed you everything as I go. I cut, if somebody's in back, I've cut the half board here over the wheel well, and then I've cut a lip. Now this board crosses over the center joint of the two halves of the house. So that'll be a solid union between the two. And it crosses over and around the wheel well, so I cut that lip out of that board. So I've got a half board and then a almost nearly a full board, which is what was recommended that I do here. And then I've got another 8-footer going to come into here next, which is to cut out for there. That'll be right in the middle here, between the wheel wells. So that piece will go in next. So I know you're supposed to stagger your boards differently, but then I'd have tiny little bits and pieces all over in between the wheel wells. And I'd prefer to have one seam in between there instead of a bunch. So I gave this a lot of thought into why I was doing this, because then I have one piece around the wheel well here and one piece around the wheel well there. And I think that's going to give me more rigidity here in this area. At least that was my hopes for that, for this section, why I did it like I did when I planned this out originally. So it's coming along. Nothing's screwed down yet. I'm just cutting and setting in place just to get a good idea how this is going to come together. So, and these aren't even, as you can see, that one's bowed up. These aren't even stuck together. They're just sitting in place, so I get the measurements and get the cuts. The mosquitoes are out in force already. Yeah, sorry for the jerkiness of the camera, but I'm waving at mosquitoes with my free hand. But I'm going to finish cutting all the boards and placing them on today, and then I think that'll be pretty much it for the day by the time I get that done, getting cut out around the wheel wells. And then the next day's project, I'll be putting down the rest of the bracing in between where the boards will go, right where the joints are, all along this edge here. And I'm also going to put in extra bracing along this lip here, so I have something to screw into. The problem is, I don't want to cut myself short and crush my insulation here, so I can't use a 2x4. So I might end up ripping a 2x4 in half, which is going to be quite a task with a handsaw, but still, it'll at least give me something for that plywood to rest onto and then screw into. At least that's my plan, and that was my thinking for that there. So I'm going to keep on cutting. I've got one more piece that's supposed to fit here and go around this whole wheel well section. That should be one whole board if I've done my measurements right. If not, I'll be crying. Well, not literally, but still. I'll be pretty upset if that doesn't work. But I think it's gonna, because the boards are all gonna line up nicely for this. Well, here's something. As I'm always honest with something, somebody else can learn from my problem. Tongue and groove is not, doesn't come out to 48 inches wide when you take out the groove. It's 48 inches wide before the groove. So when you put together all your tongue and groove, these are just resting here for now, but once you put together your tongue and groove, you no longer have your full 48 inches to the end. So I come short of my framing here with the tongue and groove being locked together. I'm going to be about an inch short on the frame, inch and a half short. Two overlaps, 1 inch short I'm going to be on the edge. So that somebody else doesn't make the same mistake in the future. I'm telling you this. I don't hide my mistakes. I get a lot of mocking and criticism for it, but I don't hide my mistakes. So somebody else that comes along and does this is 47.5 inches once you count that tongue and groove. So that also threw off my pattern inside because I was counting for that space. So I can make up for that. It's not a major problem. Flooring doesn't always come all the way to your edge of your stuff anyway. And what I'm going to do inside here is I'm going to build a frame around the wheels. It's going to be a drop-in box, so that's why I exposed the framing here all the way around. Well, I haven't done cutting yet, but the framing will be, the frame for the wood stove will rest securely on the frame of the floor joist, and is going to literally be a box that I'm going to drop in place on top of this. And I'm going to have a cross beam here between the tires because it's going to be up higher right about there, and starting with this level I'm going to have a 2x6 on top, and then I'm going to come across with a cross brace. I'm going to have a cross brace this way as well, which will not interfere with the wheels, and then it'll give me extra strength and support for that wood stove when I use that, when I set it in here. Actually, this side is, one side is a kitchen sink, one side is the wood stove, but still I'm going to do that on both sides to make sure it's extra reinforced. But I do have my floor coming together. I got the insulation all in there, and I got the floor cut around the wheel wells. I'm just going to continue these last couple cuts here and carry on with my work. So it's coming along. It's going to be good. Looking good. Well, it's done. I've got the floor cut and fit. Again, nothing is screwed down. It's just all cut and fit into place. And I still have to square the trailer with the frame on the trailer. The floor is going to be squared separately, and then when that's squared, I'll screw down all the boards, and then I'll square the house on the trailer. But all my boards are cut and positioned. I did end up with staggered seams here, which should make some people happy. So just because of the nature of how I wanted this to pan out here in the middle, I've essentially got almost a full 4x8 sheet in the middle, which is what was recommended, and then almost a full 4x8 sheet next to it. So that did offset my seams here, which should, again, that should make people happy. But airliner going over. The way this turned out back here, though, my seams are not really staggered, but I'm not too horribly concerned because this is not going to be a real high traffic area. So looking good. Now next project is going to be to take this all off. Now that I've got them cut, the next thing I'll do is I'll take these all off, make sure I got the rest of the insulation and all the edges and all the ends, make sure I've got all my support boards in there for these to screw down to, and put it in, glue it and screw it. And this time I am using liquid nails when I bolt these down. Now over here I've just set up some extra pieces of wood just to see and show you what I was thinking about from boxing in my wheel well. The idea here is I'm going to build a box resting on the frame, on the plywood, or on the 2x6 joists. And this is going to be a complete box, fully enclosed and resting on this rim here as well, with reinforcing boards going across in between and one across this way. And that box will be insulated, and I'm probably going to end up actually getting 2x10, because what I want to have is 3.5 inch thick insulation, R15, over the wheel wells, and in all directions actually. I want to have the 3.5 inch thick insulation completely, the whole box will be completely insulated through and through, so that there's no heat loss anywhere. And it's going to be tight over in here is the only problem. I've got room for it, it'll work, but it's just going to be a little bit tight. Here I've got plenty of room, and over here I got plenty of room, and here I've got tons of space. So that'll be a project for another day. It is a lot of work building a house. It is a lot of work. But tonight I can rest knowing I've got come a big step forward. There's my tiny house on wheels so far, covered up for the night. Feels good to be making progress on my house. I still have a lot of lumber to haul out of the lumber yard, scrap lumber, before he gives me the good wood to start doing the framing of my house. But I still have a lot of work to do here yet. I still need to put in all the supports under the joints for the flooring, and square this off, and then screw down the flooring. So there's quite a bit to do yet. And then I want to sand the floor, and then I want to shellac it before I put the walls up. Reason being, if I put the walls up first and then sand the floor, then it makes a nightmarish mess inside. So I'm going to sand the floor and then shellac it one time, then put up the walls, and then I can finish the floor from the inside afterwards without any mess. So that's it for tonight. See you all tomorrow. Hope you can hear that. Sounds like a jungle. Hope you could hear that. The owls, once they get going, they sound like monkeys in the jungle. It's really cool.